Just, as you get ready for the Panthers, how are you health-wise? I know you got a lot of activity there.
Yeah, we do. And, that's where we are, right, this late in the year. And thankfully, most of the guys have a legitimate shot to play. We're going to have to tweak a couple things for practice reps for a couple guys, but, we'll have a clear picture by Friday for sure. That would be pretty optimistic on most of those guys. And, like I said, we played some physical games, and, some of the guys will be out there today limited. Guys that I feel pretty good about playing, but we'll have to see the week goes, like Chris and Jake. They won't be out there today, but there's playing for those guys, and I'm optimistic they'll play.
Yeah, they won't practice today.
Not today. Those two won't.
Yeah, update on the street.
Nothing more than, what we talked about on Monday. Still probably working through that, which I think is good. You need to get a couple opinions, but so far nothing's changed from what I told you. I mean, he won't play this week.
Is it possible he's done for the year, or?
It is possible. I mean, it's possible he could come back too. And I'm not saying that being
Right.
evasive or vague. It's just that's what you're waiting to hear.
How do you feel like the team has responded just in talking to them, obviously, after such an emotional loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them are, when you look back at it, you put a lot into it, and, there's it's such a fine line in this league. I mean, you look where the league is right now in the standings. I mean, you can manipulate language, and, you're talking about a game here or there, right? You got a bunch of teams either at 7-6 or 6-7 around the league. I mean, there's a whole lot of teams. You got teams that have looked like they're out of it a month ago that are playing really good football. They're still in it. With give or take about one or two teams on either side of this thing, it's mashed up in the middle, and that's what makes pro football what it is. Obviously, it's not sitting here saying that we're satisfied there, but that's just the reality of the situation. And that's why these games are every week, a lot at stake. This will be a huge challenge for us. The easy thing to do is look at a record and rationalize a lot. I get it. They've had a coaching change. There's a lot of stuff going on up there, but this is a very, very good defense. They've consistently, right, and the numbers show that. This isn't me trying to hype up anything. It's the reality that in that game against New Orleans, it's a one-possession game till late. They break open the game with a shot to A.T. Perry and punch it in. They get the ball right back, and then the score looks a lot worse than really what it was. And that's been a lot of games for Carolina.
There's still 4 weeks left, but beyond even the division, did you start scoreboard watching it all when you look at the 5, 6, and 7 teams?
No, you understand the question, but the reality is, that's kind of wasted energy. I mean, you're aware of the situation, and I guess, and I'm not trying to give you the cliche, but it is true. You start worrying about things outside your control, that's not going to be beneficial for you at all, and because it just takes away from the focus and the objective this week.
What can you say just about the growth in Drake London? I mean, he had a great game despite things, and just where have you seen him progressing?
Yeah, I've seen it. I think what we loved about Drake, I think he fits everything we're trying to embody here. His habits, I think, are old school, and I mean that in a positive way. He doesn't come out of practice. He's in phenomenal shape. He would take every rep, even when you try to spot him in a game. We were pretty aggressive on Sunday, as was Carolina. They pushed the ball down the field more than they have all year. They took a lot of shots outside one-on-one. We had a lot of stuff where Drake, and it paid off. He made a lot of plays, but even the ones he didn't make, you're trying to tell TJ, hey, make sure you give him a shot here, and he's sprint back to the huddle. But that's because of the kind of worker and player he is and the way he's wired.
And going up against Bryce Young, because obviously his position struggled. So what have you just seen from this season that still makes him a challenge for defenses?
Well, I mean, obviously he's a very talented player. I mean, everybody in the country saw that Bryce coming out. Why he won the Heisman, and it doesn't mean you're going to have success in the NFL, but it's not all on him either. I know there's great expectations, right, when you invest in a player high, no different than our expectations for Kyle, Drake, or Bijan. But you need a lot to be a successful quarterback. It is a team sport. And so when you're talking about organizationally, you're talking about, everything around you too. I mean, you do need help. So obviously he's a very talented player, and a lot of good football probably left ahead for him.
Coach, Drew, the four that didn't play on Sunday, are they?
Yeah, Drew will be out there. He'll be out there limited.
Okay. Caleb Landman and Okuda.
Lamb will be out there limited. Okuda will be out there limited. But Gary, he'll probably be, I'll check in again with him. He's making progress. He may be on the same plan as Chris and Jake. We'll take that up to about an hour, but he's doing a lot better.
Then David.
Yeah, David will be limited today.
You spoke a few weeks ago about how you kind of expect rookie fatigue to show up at some point for a running back, and you've not seen that. How has that affected his play and your confidence in having heavy carries
Sure.
late in the season?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're going through the season. I mean, you're doing everything you can to win, but there is a long game at stake too. And we've been cognizant of that. And, it's, if you find fault in whatever, right? If you're not winning at the clip you want to, but didn't want any of the runners to have 300 carries going into Thanksgiving. And because we have a lot of, talented players on our roster and guys that, you want to play this thing for the long game. You want to play more than 17. But here we are in crunch time, and you do feel that, like a lot of our young guys have gotten better every week.
In terms of that, what's the next step you need to see from Desmond?
It's really from the whole team, Mike, and there's a lot of ways to look at it. And, you look at, your individual performance, and that's for all of us, players and coaches. And then you can kind of break off and rationalize a lot of things. But really, I think overall, team and really consistency is like a shared accountability. You want to talk about better ways to stop a run in a game where we can also help run defense by scoring more, or, vice versa. We can help the pass rush that way, or you can have a great game statistically, but maybe there's a play or two more that could have kept the drive alive that would have led to more points, or maybe there was a little more effort on a block on a punt return that would have gotten us better field position, or, it's easy to sit here and separate individually as a units, coach or whatever, but to me, to get to where we want to be, we have to all have a shared accountability. We have to have a sense of that it matters to do our job, do it well, fine line of a couple plays here that we all can improve on. And we feel that, to me, that's when we'll take the next step.
In terms of his turnovers, because of everything that happened kind of earlier this season.
Sure.
And, obviously they've been sitting for a couple of games. When he does have a game that has a couple of turnovers, do you have to do something to kind of make sure there's not any sort of going back to that old mental place or here we go again type scenario?
Well, I think with a lot of young guys, it's a lot of sports, a lot of life is how you handle failure. If you're going to have failure in a game, you have 73 snaps and you could play 65 of them really well, a couple okay, and then you could have 3 or 4 that you'd love to have back. And, if you have one of those early in the game, which he did, and again, a lot of things can happen on play. The question about Bryce, well, there's 11 guys on offense, and there's 10 other guys beside the quarterback on offense, and then the other side has to say there's 11 guys over there. And if, a couple things break down and a bad play, and then it becomes a really bad play, and, those are things you got to eliminate. And you're right, because when those happen, okay, what's your reaction? And that's what you want to see. You don't want that at all. But when things happen, or if all of a sudden you make a great read, you get the ball out, the ball gets tipped in the air and they pick it, is that the quarterback's fault? But that's going to happen, and if it does, an interception, how do you handle that? Because they're all different. And you do watch him, and I think he's made a lot of strides there. I mean, I think the evidence would be how he played the rest of the game. I mean, he made some really difficult throws. Even the one, Drake had an unbelievable game. The one play that he didn't, that could have gotten us a scoring, that may have been the hardest throw he made all day. Rolling out to his left, feet aren't set, drop that thing right in the bucket. And that's not blaming Drake or doing this and that. It's not what we're talking about. But those are little things that we all can get better. But you do see you see a lot of growth there.
Is there anything other than just situational reality for why he's statistically so much better in the fourth quarter than in the first three?
Done a lot of studies on it, a lot of talks. I mean, it is. I mean, that's, if you look at the history of it, what is it? And that's all we're trying to capture. And we've looked at every way we started a game. We've looked at, lulls and things. We've looked at the, moving the ball at the end of the second quarter but coming away with no points and things that have come up there. Yeah, I mean, that is a very good positive, but it's
Right.
capturing that from consistently from quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Did you have to tell them like you're down the whole time? Like to really like amp them up?
I mean, some have been around some players say they need to get hit first, whatever. I mean, yeah, if you look at it all.
If you could look at a piece of tape blind, which you can't, but do you think you could tell if you saw him playing in the fourth quarter versus the first? Like, would you see a difference? Do you feel like he's doing anything differently? Does that make any sense?
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, that's what everybody tries to figure out, how do you capture that consistency? So it'd be one thing if it was just nothing to even have hope about, but there's other things you're like, well, it's pretty damn good, and that's for all of us. But, yeah, you can see it, whether you're down the mix and you know exactly what we're asking or you're just a neutral observer. I think there's a rhythm in any sport. You can tell when somebody's in a flow, and whether you're watching a great tennis match, you're watching Federer play Nadal in an epic match, and you're looking at two guys at the peak, and you're watching a guy, then all of a sudden, same player, you may watch him, and you say something's not right that day. And I promise you, I'm a tennis novice. I'm just using that as an example. If you're watching a golfer, watching a swing, which I really know nothing about, but we can all sit here and say, oh, this guy's in sync. So, yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Say something about him as a competitor, though. I mean, you talk about being a winning mentality and that kind of stuff. That
Sure.
I can handle that pressure when it's all on him to win a game.
Yeah, he wants the ball. I mean, it's the same thing you see at DB. There's no panic. Like, I think you watch Clark Phillips, he's hoping the ball comes his way. There's guys that are wishing hoping the ball doesn't come their way. Like, the guys that want it, I think that's a good trait to have.
Is it possible that that's how he's wired?
Possibly. I mean, that's an age-old question. Like, can you change that? It's like some of your behavior, your way you learn. You may not be a great student in 5th grade math, and all of a sudden, history shows, and somehow you get become a math major, and you get your doctorate or something. I don't know.
I just might be. I don't really answer that on this point. Do you look at that and say, hey, maybe talk to because it's a mental thing to go talk to.
Yeah, we all said, yeah, nobody's got the ego to say hey, there's a lot of things which a lot of teams do. I mean, some of it's overcovered, and it happens good. You find the guy that makes sure he tries to get in front of the parade, and it goes bad, and everybody moves away. That's not what we do here, but we do try to, because everybody's different. Every one of us in here is different, the way you learn or things, whatever, and what you're trying to work on. And we try to exhaust every resource we have, and whether it's in the building or out of the building.
Is it encouraging what you saw from Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's another guy. He's come out here, never made excuses, continue to work, and it's starting to pay off. It's not easy what he came back from. So that's what you got to give Kyle a lot of credit for.
Sunday obviously showcased these reserve offensive linemen who are able to step in and play well. You often refer to that as a program. I've noticed, talk about your offensive line, specifically the program. Can you talk about that, the development of those players in particular, and how that might differ from some other positions or roles that players have?
We've tried it, a lot of positions, but that position, they're all unique, but there's a lot that goes into it, especially playing on this level. You could be a great college player, and there's some things, blocks that you may not have been asked to do, and you may come from these offenses that put up video game numbers, but then you get to the NFL, some of those blocks, it's just not reality, and who you're playing and the timing of it. That's another great thing, too, when you're looking at quarterbacks. Some of these guys have 5 Mississippi back there. That's not going to be reality. They don't have anybody at their feet. Having to move, the speed and strength of the D lineman coming through there, or some of the way you set, and that's not a knock at the college game at all. I love watching football at every level, whether it's the Georgia State playoffs going on at MBS to, bowl season when you get a chance to watch it. You got appreciation for it all. So that's not me being arrogant league guy talking down. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is if you want to commit to that, you got to have the right player because the credit goes to them. And then there's a lot of things, resources you put in, things they do in the weight room, from nutritionists to the way you try to set up practices and every advantage you can get. Go down to having the right player, but then also having the right people around and sticking to it. And sometimes it's easy to give up on guys, and nobody's got it perfect about. All right, well, maybe may not make it, or hey, we're close. So it's a credit to a lot of people, starting with the players and those guys. It showed up. I mean, what you talk about Ryan Newsel, just bringing Storm in here. He hadn't been here a ton, but he's found a good spot. Tyler Vrabel, Kyle Hinton, and the list goes on. No different than Andre Smith and Travis Bell. Got a chance to get LaKale London back. There's a lot goes into it.
Is it harder going against, I guess, maybe a one-win team that maybe is not really playing for anything at this time of year? It can kind of just.
If you let that creep into it's such a funny thing in human psychology because it's a National Football League. I mean, just look at this past weekend's games. I mean, that's the life in the NFL. You go to history. I mean, I was part of a reason we didn't make a playoffs in 2011. The year that Indy, where Peyton had the neck issue and they were 0 for whatever. And, that game probably cost us the playoffs. We ended up going 9-7. And I think they were 0-13. We went up to Indy, ugly game, didn't play well, give Indy credit. They got hot. I think it was Dan Orlowski who was playing quarterback, and they hit one shot and a cover two. We got a penalty on a punt. And then they broke an 80-yard. We had a guy 4 minutes to get the ball back, and a guy popped a 80-yard run on you, and you lose. And then they turned around. They played a really good Texans team, I believe, won the division that year, and they beat Houston 4 days later. That's pro football, and you shouldn't have to use that historical example, but you just look week to week and know the fine line. Like, there's a lot of close games. Carolina's been in a lot of close games, and this will be a challenge, like they all are.
Anything else?
Thank you.